This lesson is over multiplying fractions by whole numbers. So first we're going to look at some of these pieces to see if we can model what's actually going on here. Okay, so what we're looking at for on this first problem is 3 of 2/5. So to represent 2/5 on a pie, you can represent it like this: 1, 2 out of the 5 parts that there would be. But my problem said that I wanted 3 of those. So I have 3 of 2/5. Remember, multiplication means of. So if I put those all together, it makes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fifths, which I can then turn into a mixed number by dividing. 5 goes into 6 one time with 1 left over. So again, remember that multiplication is the same thing as repeated addition. So 2/5 and 2/5 and 2/5. In this next example, we want 1/6 of 4, which doesn't make as much sense to us as if we say 4 of 1/6. So I'm going to split these into 6, and I'm going to shade one of them. And I'm going to do that 4 times. So what I end up with is 1, 2, 3, 4 out of 6 pieces. Please remember that we always do want to simplify our answers. So I'm going to divide both top and bottom by 2. That's going to give me a final answer of 2/3. So we're going to use these pieces to draw our next few problems. So first, it says I want 5 of 1/4. So I need 5, and I need 1/4 in each of them. So 5 of 1/4 means that I really have a full colored in circle and one extra piece left over. So that was 5/4, or in other words, 1 1/4. So I'm going to switch these because multiplication can be done in any orders. This is 2 of 2/5. So I want 2 of 2/5. So what I end up with is 1, 2, 3, 4/5. 3 of 2/3. That's not really a good drawing. Let's try that again. So I wanted 3 of 2/3. So here's 2/3 3 times, which altogether gives me 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6/3, which really makes 2 wholes altogether. This is 4 of 3/8. And each of these should have 3 colored. So I have 3, 6, 9, 12 eighths, which is going to give me one whole with 4 eighths left over. And 4 eighths is half of a circle. So it's really 1 and 1/2. So Penny had 5 yards of ribbon. She gave 2/5 of her ribbon to Morgan. How much ribbon did she give Morgan? So of, again, means multiply. So we are going to do, I want 5 of 2/5. So that means I have 2/5 and 2/5 and 2/5 and 2/5 and another 2/5. So that's 2, 4, 6, 8, 10/5 that I had total. And that's really 2. So how much ribbon did I give her? 2 yards. So sometimes we're going to use square pieces to model that. And this is still the same thing. I want 1/2 of 3/4. And you could also say that 3/4 of 1/2, either way. So basically what that means is that I have 3/4. So I'm going to shade 3 out of 4 columns, but I only want 1/2 of that. So my next step is to split it into 1, 2 columns for 1/2. This is 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and I only want to shade half of that. So notice the part that overlaps. That is 1, 2, 3 parts out of the total 8. So the answer is 3/8. So if I'm going to do 1/3 of 1/2, the first thing I need to do is split my chart into halves. And that's what I'm going to shade. Now I only want 1/3 of that, so I now need to split my chart into thirds. And I only want 1/3 of that. So when you look at the part that's overlapping right here, there is 1 out of 6. On the next example, we want 3/4 of 2/3. So I'm going to split this into 2/3, and I'm going to shade 2 of it. And now I want only 3/4 of that. So I'm going to split this into fourths. And I'm going to shade 3/4 of it. So my answer is going to be this overlapping area, and that is 6 squares out of 12 squares. And yes, we always simplify. So divide by 2, divide by 2. It's going to give me 3/4. The next example has me doing 1/2 of 4/5. So the first thing I need to do is split this into fives. And I'm going to shade 4 of them. Then I only want 1/2 of that. So I'm going to break this into 1/2. And I'm going to color that so I can see my overlap. My overlap is these 4 squares out of the 10 that I have total. And of course, I always reduce, so I'm dividing both top and bottom by 2. The last example has 2/5 of 1/2. So here's 1/2. And I want 2/5 of that. So I've got to break this into fifths. And I'm going to shade 2 of those. So my overlap is now 2 out of the 10, which of course reduces to 1/5. So hopefully you've started to think about a pattern here, and you've noticed the mathematical way that we do this without modeling. So when you look at this problem, hopefully you've noticed that something happens with the top and something happens with the bottom. Looking back at our examples, 3 and 2, we split this into 3 and this into 2, which was where we came up with our 6. Notice the denominator is 6. We split this into 3 and this into 4 because that's the bottom of the fractions were. So if you notice, that gave us 12 squares and the denominator was 12. As far as the top part, hopefully you've also noticed that those get multiplied. So when you look at this, multiplying fractions, they do not have to have the same denominator. You just do 1 times 3 is 3, 2 times 4 is 8, and you reduce if necessary. So one way to remember that is top times top, bottom times bottom, and then of course we always simplify. And then we have a little rhyme for that as well. Multiplying fractions, that's no problem. It's the top times the top and the bottom times the bottom. Tomorrow we'll practice a little bit more with multiplying fractions against fractions and fractions against whole numbers, and we will add in our mixed numbers. Please complete the homework on the next few pages of your booklet.